Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lucy and this is the fourth in a series of 4 reviews I've been doing on the music of Blimp, Sean Blimp, Devontae Blimples, or however that's supposed to be said. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I'd recommend checking them out first as I'll be referencing them in this review. Beautiful Liquid was released in February 2021 and caps off a particularly prolific 8-month period for the band. Whereas Cool Artist had a bit of everything, Rhino Giraffe Man focused more on the melodic side of the band, and Pink Goyim featured an exploration of the more free-flowing side. I think Beautiful Liquid is where the wheels came off the Blimpy bike. Every song in Beautiful Liquid feels like there was an idea on paper, but then the paper was lost at some point during the recording process, forcing Blimples to improvise exactly how he wanted to finish these songs. We're greeted with obscure scale progressions with atonal melodic structures chromatically falling across the sonic space a mere minute into the album as Vast Waters, one of Blimples' longest tracks, struggles to find a direction. Once again, the drums and bass aren't quite in sync and sound like they're not actually a part of what was originally composed, simply pasted over general guitar noodling. The reverb and general guitar tone is absolutely on point, however. It's just a shame there's not a single discernible melody to be had in this 11-minute runtime. I feel like the Blimp was asking himself, what else can I add, rather than what else should I add? The amount of variation on display here would be almost inspirational if any of it was interesting to listen to. This vaguely nonsensical direction sets off exactly what's going to be going on here. Whereas the guitar playing was largely competent on the previous 3 albums, there's just something not quite right about a lot of what's happened on Beautiful Liquid. Out of time notes are more frequent, the general playing feels more loose, almost liquidy, flowing even. The mixing on the guitars is also a little off compared to Rhino Giraffe Man. There's a general sense of mud across all the guitar tracks, while the acoustic guitars are sort of tinny and off-putting. There's also an over-reliance on what sounds like a guitar slide or maybe some sort of whammy pedal to create hazy atmospheres. It feels like a one-trick pony and it's everywhere. Unfortunately, this trick was played quite a bit on previous releases, so here it's almost superfluous to requirements. It's a shame because on Cool Artist and particularly Rhino Giraffe Man, Dave Blimp has proven he knows his way around a good guitar riff. Something to note when comparing Beautiful Liquid to the previous 2 releases is that the vocals don't appear to be competently sung. I'm not sure what was going on here, but even compared to the vocal performance and mixing in Pink Goyim just 3 months prior to this release, they're noticeably muddy and lacking in confidence. I don't think there was a single point in this album where I took note of a great vocal melody or an interesting way in which the vocals were used, which is pretty alarming considering the competently sung Rhino Giraffe Man and interesting vocal usage in Pink Goyim. I'm certain this was intentional, I'm just not sure what the intention was supposed to be. If they're not really prominent and the structures could be supplemented with more worthwhile and competently played instruments, then why have them in the first place? I don't feel the artist's intention was carried across particularly well in most of the album for that matter. If there's any particular deeper meaning to be had in the songs of Beautiful Liquid, it's completely lost on me. The drums seem to be sound designed in such a way that Dave Blimp has given up on making them sound, for lack of a better word, right, and opted for the first thing that came to mind. And if that didn't fit, well, just cut them up and distort them. The main problem I have with this style of drum mixing is that the songs Blimpy is trying to make seem to require a strong rhythm to carry the otherwise nonsensical structures, and often the drums either just aren't there or they're not fitting the song at all. In fact, the album might have been better off as an ambient guitar piece, instead doing away with any notion of a more conventional guitar-based drum structure. The issue here is the songs sound like avant-guitar guitar pieces with the drums just not added. It's a very strange listen. On the songs where the drums and such are more prominent, they're at least somewhat competent, it's just few and far between. A general theme in the album seems to be experimentation. Now, experimentation could be subjective to each person, but I don't think there's anything on Beautiful Liquid that wasn't already a part of the experimentation repertoire found on Cool Artist and refined in Rhino Giraffe Man. There seems to be a tendency to veer into atonal melodies, which would be fine if the entire album wasn't composed of largely atonal melodies. It makes for a tiring listen. Your ear desperately wants to cling on to structure and key, but Blimp Man just doesn't have any of it. You're going to sit and listen to this atonal polyrhythmic assault and that's the end of the conversation. I guess my argument to this would be if there's nothing within Beautiful Liquid to give the listener a reprieve, then the experiment has no A-B comparison, and thus the more experimental moments are just varying levels of obtuseness, giving the album a largely strange flow. As a mood piece, it's fine, but I'd rather hear a memorable melody or rhythm, so I have something to compare the weird, distorted and reverberated soundscapes to. The songs seem to have been composed with the thought process, if I can't make it interesting, I'll just make it weird. The aimless structures are back in full force. Songs come and songs go. I don't think there's really anything I can say beyond that. I don't think Beautiful Liquid makes for a particularly enjoyable listen for a few reasons, but I'd struggle to point out where songs end and others start without a track listed in front of me. Instruments will fade in and out, play a few notes, and then go on their merry way. In some ways, Beautiful Liquid could be commended for the amount of ideas on display. I just don't feel most of these ideas were developed enough to put onto an album, especially on the strength of some of the stuff Blimples was recording even a few months prior. I find it hard to recommend Beautiful Liquid. As I said previously, the album just doesn't feel like it was put together particularly well. While Cool Artist, Rhino Giraffe Man and Pink Goyim had a lot of obvious heart in their compositions that carried the often lackluster production, Beautiful Liquid just doesn't feel like it's got many redeeming qualities for me to overlook the glaring problems in the whole package. If you're truly interested in finishing up your D-Blimp journey, listen to this for a sense of completion. But I for one hope that Beautiful Liquid is a blip in the D-Blimp discography and not an indication of the direction we'll be hearing in the future. So there you have it, 4 reviews for 4 albums released over around 8 months by D-Blimp. I hope you've enjoyed these reviews. Thanks for listening.